Captain Zethara sat in her command chair, her blue skin glowing softly in the dim light of the bridge. The Starweaver had been traveling through empty space for 3 weeks now, searching for new worlds to add to the galactic maps. Her crew was getting restless, but that was normal on long survey missions. The silence broke when her sensor officer, Krindal, suddenly straightened up at his station. His 4 eyes widened as he stared at his screen. "Captain," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm picking up something strange." Zethara turned her chair toward him. "What kind of strange?" "There's a ship out there. Unknown design, it's just drifting." The bridge went quiet. Finding unknown ships in deep space was rare. Most of the time it meant trouble. "How far?" Zethara asked. "About 2 million kilometers. It's small, maybe 1/10 our size." Zethara stood up and walked over to Krindal's station. The screen showed a rough outline of the mystery ship. It looked crude, like someone had built it in a hurry with whatever materials they could find. "Any signs of life?" she asked. Krindal ran more scans. His face grew pale. "Yes, Captain, there are life forms aboard. But that's not the strangest part." "Go on." "The ship's design, it doesn't match anything in our database. But I managed to trace its origin point." He paused, looking nervous. "It came from a world called Earth." The name meant nothing to Zethara at first. Then she remembered. "Earth? Isn't that one of those Class 15 worlds?" "Yes, Captain. Class 15. Deathworld. The reports say it's completely impossible for life to exist there." Zethara felt a chill run down her spine. Class 15 Deathworlds were the worst kind of planets in the galaxy. Extreme weather, deadly creatures, poisonous air, and natural disasters that could wipe out entire civilizations. No known species could survive on such a world, let alone build spaceships. "Are you certain about the readings?" she asked. "I've checked 3 times. The ship definitely came from Earth, and there are definitely living beings inside." First Officer Yemtai approached them, having overheard the conversation. "Captain, this could be dangerous. If something survived on a Class 15 world, we have no idea what we're dealing with." Zethara nodded slowly. Yemtai was right to be cautious, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. In all her years exploring space, she had never encountered anything like this. "Bring us closer," she ordered, "but keep our shields up and weapons ready." The Starweaver moved toward the unknown ship. As they got closer, the details became clearer. The ship was indeed crude by galactic standards. It used simple fusion engines that were centuries behind current technology. Its hull was made of basic metals that most species had stopped using long ago. "It's like looking at something from the Dark Ages," Krindal muttered. Communications Officer Norabeth spoke up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting some kind of signal from the ship. It's very basic, but it seems to be trying to communicate." "Can you understand it?" "I'm working on it now." Norabeth's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "It appears to be mathematical sequences, very simple ones. Like a greeting." Zethara thought for a moment. Mathematical greetings were common in first contact situations. Most species used them because math was universal. But the idea that beings from a Class 15 death world knew about first contact protocols was unsettling. "Send back a basic response," she decided. "Let them know we're here." Norabeth worked for several minutes, then sent a simple mathematical sequence back to the unknown ship. The response came almost immediately. "Captain," Norabeth said, her voice filled with surprise. "They're responding in galactic standard, basic level, but understandable." "What are they saying?" Norabeth listened to her headset, then looked up with wide eyes. "They say, 'Hello out there. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Horizon. We've been hoping to meet some neighbors.'" The bridge fell silent again. The casual, friendly tone of the message was not what anyone had expected from beings who had survived the impossible. "Neighbors?" Yemtai repeated. "They're treating this like a social visit." Dr. Velnara, the ship's science officer, had been quietly running scans during the conversation. She finally spoke up. "Captain, I've been analyzing the life forms on that ship. The readings are disturbing." "How so?" Their bone density is 3 times higher than any known species. Their muscle structure suggests they're built for extreme physical stress. And their brain activity patterns, they're unlike anything I've ever seen. Zathara felt her unease growing. Are they dangerous? I don't know. But everything about their biology suggests they evolved in an extremely hostile environment. Their bodies are designed for survival, under conditions that would kill most of us instantly. The communication system crackled again. Jake Morrison's voice came through clearly. Is anyone there? We'd really like to talk. We've been traveling for months, and you're the first other ship we've found. Zathara looked around at her crew. Fear and curiosity warred in their faces. These beings from Earth seemed friendly enough, but they came from a world that should have been impossible to survive. Captain, Norabeth said quietly. They're asking if they can come aboard. The request sent a wave of panic through the bridge crew. Inviting unknown aliens onto their ship was dangerous enough. Inviting beings from a Class 15 Deathworld seemed like suicide. But Jake Morrison's voice had sounded so genuinely friendly, so hopeful. Zathara found herself wanting to believe that these impossible beings might be peaceful. Tell them we need time to prepare, she said finally. But yes, we'll arrange a meeting. As Norabeth sent the message, Zathara wondered what she had just agreed to. In a few hours, she would come face to face with beings who had achieved the impossible. They had not only survived on a world that should have killed them, but had built ships and traveled to the stars. The question that worried her most was simple. What kind of creatures could thrive in hell and still sound so cheerful about meeting strangers? 3 hours later, Captain Zathara stood in Docking Bay 7, watching her crew make final preparations. Security teams had set up force fields and weapon emplacements around the meeting area. Dr. Velnara held her medical scanner ready, while Krindle monitored his sensors for any sign of danger. Are you sure about this, Captain? Yemtai asked for the 3rd time. We still don't know what we're dealing with. The scans show only 3 life forms coming aboard, Zathara replied. If they wanted to harm us, they would have sent more. Dr. Velnara looked up from her readings. Captain, I've been studying their biology more closely. These humans are built like living weapons. Their reaction times are faster than our security. Systems can track, but they haven't shown any hostile behavior, Norabeth pointed out. Every message has been polite and friendly. That might make them more dangerous, Yemtai muttered. Predators often appear harmless before they strike. The docking bay's outer doors opened with a soft hiss. A small shuttlecraft entered, moving slowly and carefully. It was as crude as the main ship, but it flew smoothly. Whoever was piloting it knew what they were doing. The shuttle landed gently on the deck. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then a door opened on the side of the craft. The first human to step out was tall and broad-shouldered. He had short brown hair and kind eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. Despite the heavy gravity and strange atmosphere of the ship, he moved easily, like he was comfortable anywhere. That must be Jake Morrison, Norabeth whispered. Behind him came a woman with blonde hair tied back in a simple style. She carried what looked like a communication device and smiled at everything she saw. The third human was a man with dark skin and alert eyes. He walked like a soldier, but his face was relaxed and friendly. Jake Morrison looked around the docking bay, then focused on the group of aliens waiting for him. His face broke into a wide smile. Hello there, he said, raising one hand in what seemed to be a greeting gesture. I'm Jake Morrison. Thank you so much for letting us come aboard. His voice was warm and genuine. There was no trace of fear or aggression in it. Zathara found herself relaxing slightly despite her concerns. I am Captain Zathara, she replied. Welcome to the Star Weaver. This is Lieutenant Amy Collins, Jake said, indicating the blonde woman. She handles our communications. And this is Sergeant Pete Williams, our security specialist. Pete Williams stepped forward and nodded politely. Thank you for having us. We know this must be strange for you. Dr. Velnara stepped closer with her scanner, trying to get better readings on the humans. Amy Collins noticed the device and looked curious. Is that some kind of medical scanner? Amy asked. That's fascinating. Our equipment is much more basic. You don't mind being scanned? Dr. Velnara asked, surprised. Not at all, Jake said. We understand you need to know we're safe. Where we come from, being careful about strangers is just common sense. Dr. Velnara ran her scans while the humans waited patiently. The readings made her scales turn pale. These beings were even more dangerous than she had thought. Their bones were like metal, their muscles like cables, and their reflexes were impossibly fast. But they just stood there smiling, waiting for her to finish. Your world, Zethara began carefully. Our records say it's classified as uninhabitable. Jake laughed. Earth can be challenging, that's true, but it's home. We've learned to work with what we have. Challenging? Yemtai repeated. Our database lists constant natural disasters, extreme weather, and deadly predators. Oh, you mean like hurricanes and earthquakes? Amy said casually. Yeah, we get those. I grew up in Florida, so I'm used to hurricane season. You just prepare for them and deal with it. The alien crew exchanged horrified looks. Hurricanes were planet-killing storms on most worlds. This human spoke about them like they were minor inconveniences. What about the predators? Crindall asked. Pete Williams shrugged. Most of them leave you alone if you don't bother them. And the ones that don't, well, that's why we learned to make tools and work together. Tools? Dr. Velnara asked. Weapons mostly, Pete said matter-of-factly. Though we use them for hunting food more than fighting predators these days. The casual mention of weapons made several crew members step back. But Pete seemed to notice their reaction and quickly added, Don't worry. We didn't bring any aboard. Your ship. We're here to make friends, not enemies. Jake looked around at the nervous faces surrounding them. I think we might be giving the wrong impression. Let me try to explain better. He gestured toward a viewing port that showed Earth's sun in the distance. Our planet taught us to be tough, yes, but it also taught us to help each other. When a storm comes, neighbors work together to get through it. When someone gets hurt, everyone helps them heal. We learned that cooperation is the only way to survive. But you said you fight each other too, Yemtai pointed out. Sometimes, Jake admitted, but usually over resources or territory, and we've gotten much better at talking things out instead of fighting. Most of us, anyway. Amy Collins had been looking around the docking bay with obvious fascination. Your technology is incredible. These force fields, the artificial gravity that adjusts automatically, the translation systems that let us understand each other perfectly. We have nothing like this. How did you achieve space travel then? Crindall asked. Very carefully, Pete said with a grin, and with a lot of backup systems. When you can't rely on your equipment being perfect, you learn to plan for everything that can go wrong. Dr. Velnara finally spoke up. According to my scans, you've been in space for 6 months. In that primitive ship. 6 months isn't too bad, Jake said. We've had longer deployments. Deployments? Zethara asked. Military missions, Pete explained. Sometimes you have to stay in difficult places for extended periods. Space is actually pretty peaceful compared to some places we've been. The aliens stared at him in shock. To them, deep space was one of the most hostile environments imaginable. The idea that these humans found it peaceful was disturbing. Amy Collins noticed their expressions and laughed. I think we're scaring them, guys. Sorry about that, Jake said. We don't mean to be frightening. We're just excited to meet you. We've been hoping to find other intelligent life for centuries. Centuries? Nora Beth asked. Well, we've been wondering about it for centuries, Amy clarified. We've only been able to look for it for the past few decades. Jake looked around at the crew again. Look, I know we probably seem strange to you, but all we want is to learn about the galaxy and maybe make some friends along the way. We're explorers, not conquerors. Despite her fears, Zethara found herself believing him. There was something honest about these humans, something genuine in their curiosity and friendliness. Perhaps, she said slowly, we could continue this conversation in a more comfortable setting. Would you like a tour of our ship? Jake's face lit up. That would be amazing, thank you. As they began to walk toward the exit, Pete Williams looked back at the security setup and chuckled. "You guys really don't take chances, do you?" "We've learned to be careful," Yemtai replied stiffly. "Smart," Pete said with approval. "Careful keeps you alive." The tour of the Starweaver took 3 hours. Jake Morrison, Amy Collins, and Pete Williams asked questions about everything they saw. Their curiosity seemed endless, and their ability to understand complex systems after just one explanation amazed. The crew, Dr. Velnara, had set up her medical bay for a full examination of the humans. With Jake's permission, she ran every test she could think of. The results were beyond anything she had imagined. "Captain," she called Zethara over to look at her readings. "You need to see this." Zethara looked at the medical display and felt her blood run cold. "These numbers can't be right. I've checked them 5 times. Jake Morrison's bone density is 4 times stronger than ours. His muscle fibers are designed for incredible stress. And his immune system—" She paused, shaking her head. "He's carrying antibodies for diseases that would wipe out entire planets. How is that possible? Earth must be even worse than we thought. His body has adapted to survive things that would kill us in seconds." In the conference room, the cultural exchange continued. Amy Collins was explaining human history to an increasingly horrified audience. "The Ice Age lasted for thousands of years," she said casually. "Most of the planet was covered in ice sheets kilometers thick, but humans survived by working together and adapting." "Ice sheets kilometers thick?" Krindal repeated weakly. "That would freeze the atmosphere solid on most worlds." "It was pretty cold," Amy agreed. "But we learned to make fire, build shelters, and hunt for food even in those conditions." Pete Williams added, "That wasn't even the worst thing that happened to us. There was this asteroid impact about 65 million years ago that killed off the dinosaurs." "Dinosaurs?" Yemtai asked. "Giant reptiles. Some of them were bigger than your ship. They ruled the planet until the asteroid hit and changed the climate. The alien crew sat in stunned silence. An asteroid impact that could kill creatures the size of spaceships and change an entire planet's climate was beyond their comprehension. But life survived," Jake said. "It always does on Earth. Life finds a way to adapt and keep going no matter what happens." Norabeth managed to find her voice. "What other disasters has your world experienced?" Amy thought for a moment. "Well, there have been several mass extinctions. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years, magnetic pole reversals, climate changes that flooded continents or turned forests into deserts. And through all of this," Jake continued, "different species kept evolving and adapting. By the time humans appeared, Earth had already tested billions of different survival strategies." Dr. Velnara entered the conference room, still pale from her medical readings. "Jake, may I ask you about your physical condition?" "Sure, what would you like to know? Have you ever been seriously injured?" Jake rolled up his sleeve, showing several scars on his arm. "Broke this arm twice when I was young. Got bit by a snake once. Had surgery to remove my appendix, nothing too serious." Dr. Velnara stared at the scars. Each injury he described casually would have been fatal to most galactic species. "The snake bite," she said carefully. "What kind of snake?" "Rattlesnake. Pretty common where I grew up. The venom makes you sick, but if you get to a hospital quickly, you'll be fine." "You survived being poisoned by a predator?" "Well, yeah. We have anti-venom for most snake bites. It's not usually a big deal unless you're really far from help." Pete Williams laughed. "You should hear about the time Amy got caught in a riptide." "A what?" several aliens asked at once. "It's when the ocean current suddenly changes direction," Amy explained. "The water pulls you out to sea faster than you can swim back. I got pulled about a kilometer offshore before the Coast Guard found me." "You survived being dragged into an ocean by hostile currents?" Zethara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "It was scary," Amy admitted, "but I knew to swim parallel to the shore until I got out of the current, then swim back. Basic water. Safety." The aliens exchanged looks of pure terror. These humans spoke about surviving things that would be recorded as natural disasters on any civilized world. Jake noticed their expressions. I'm starting to think we might be giving you the wrong idea about Earth. It's not as dangerous as we're making it sound." "Not dangerous?" Yemtai squeaked. "Well, it can be challenging," Jake said. "But most of the time, if you're prepared and careful, you'll be fine. We've learned to predict weather patterns, avoid dangerous animals, and build structures that can survive earthquakes and storms." "What about war?" Krindal asked quietly. "Our records show humans have fought each other." The three humans grew more serious. Pete Williams answered first. "Yes, we've had wars. Too many of them. But we've also learned from them. Most of the world has been at peace for decades now." "What were the wars like?" Dr. Velnara asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "Terrible," Jake said simply. "We developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We fought battles that lasted for years. Millions of people died." The conference room fell silent. The idea of a species surviving on a Class 15 Deathworld and then turning their survival skills against each other was almost incomprehensible. "But that's why we're out here," Amy said softly. "We learned that fighting each other was wasteful and destructive. We decided to focus our energy on exploration and discovery instead." "You turned your weapons into tools for exploration?" Norabeth asked. "More or less," Pete said. "The rockets that brought us to space were originally designed as weapons, but we found better uses for them." Jake leaned forward. "Look, I know all of this sounds frightening, but the same things that made us tough also taught us to value cooperation and peace. When you live on a world that's constantly trying to kill you, you learn that your neighbors are your most valuable resource. We help each other," Amy added. "When disasters strike, humans from all over the world send aid. When someone makes a discovery, we share it with everyone. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest individual, it's about being the strongest community." Dr. Velnara spoke up again. "Jake, what do you hope to accomplish out here in space?" "We want to explore, learn, and meet other intelligent species like yourselves. Earth is getting crowded, so we're also looking for new places where humans might be able to live." "New places to live?" Zethara asked. "Not to take from anyone," Jake said quickly. "We're looking for empty worlds that might be suitable for human colonies, preferably places that are already challenging, since those are the kind of environments we understand best." The aliens stared at him. The idea that anyone would voluntarily seek out challenging worlds was beyond their understanding. "What would you consider a suitable world?" Yemtai asked. Jake thought for a moment. "Well, it would need water and breathable air, some geological activity to keep the ecosystem dynamic, maybe some interesting weather patterns, a few dangerous animals to keep us alert." Pete grinned. "Basically, we want to find a planet that's like home, but maybe a little bit easier." The alien crew sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had learned. These humans had survived the impossible, turned their deadliest weapons into tools for peace, and now they were looking for more dangerous worlds to call home. And they were doing it all with genuine enthusiasm and optimism that was both inspiring and terrifying. 2 days after the first meeting, emergency signals were buzzing across the galaxy. Captain Zethara sat in her ready room, watching the stream of messages from the Galactic Council. News of the humans had spread faster than she had expected. Admiral Korath's face appeared on her screen, his scaled features showing deep concern. "Captain, I've read your reports about these humans. Are you certain about all of this?" "Yes, Admiral, everything I've reported is true. They're unlike anything we've encountered before. The Council is in emergency session. Half the species want them quarantined immediately. The other half want to study them. There's talk of classifying them as a galactic threat." Zethara felt a pang of guilt. Jake Morrison and his crew had been nothing but friendly and helpful. They didn't deserve to be treated as dangerous criminals. "Admiral, they're not hostile. They've been completely cooperative." "That might make them more dangerous, Captain. A species that can survive a Class 15 Deathworld and still appear friendly could be the most dangerous predator in the galaxy." After the call ended, Zethara walked to the observation deck where Jake Morrison was standing with Dr. Velnara. They were looking out at the stars, talking quietly about stellar formation. "The thing about stars," Jake was saying, "is that they're constantly exploding and reforming, creation and destruction happening at the same time. Kind of like life on Earth, I suppose. Dr. Velnara nodded thoughtfully. Over the past 2 days, she had grown less afraid of the humans and more fascinated by them. Jake, may I ask you something personal? Of course. When you were young, did you ever think about how dangerous your world was? Jake smiled. Not really. When you grow up somewhere, it just seems normal. I knew there were risks, but there are risks everywhere. The key is learning to manage them, Midge. But didn't the constant danger make your people aggressive or fearful? Sometimes, Jake admitted, but mostly it made us careful and cooperative. When you might face a hurricane or earthquake at any time, you learn to help your neighbors. You prepare together, and you recover together. Dr. Velnara was about to ask another question when Amy Collins joined them on the deck. She was carrying a small device that she had been working on. Jake, I think I've figured out their communication system, Amy said excitedly. It's incredibly sophisticated. They can talk to ships across the entire galaxy instantly. That's amazing, Jake replied. Our radio signals take years to travel between planets. Amy looked at Dr. Velnara. Would it be possible for us to send a message to Earth? Just to let them know we're safe and that we've made contact? Dr. Velnara hesitated. The request seemed innocent enough, but she wasn't sure about the protocols for this situation. I'll have to ask the captain, she said. Later that day, Pete Williams was in the ship's gymnasium with several of the crew members. They had been curious about human physical capabilities, so Pete had offered to demonstrate. Crindall watched in amazement as Pete lifted weights that would have crushed most aliens. How is this possible? He asked. Just normal training, Pete said, setting down the weights. On Earth, most people exercise regularly to stay healthy. Physical fitness is important when you might need to run from a storm or help someone who's injured. This is normal for humans? Yemtai asked. More or less, I'm probably in better shape than average because of my military training, but not by much. Norabeth had been watching quietly. Pete, when you were in the military, what did you do? Mostly peacekeeping operations, making sure civilians were safe during conflicts, providing security for aid workers, that sort of thing. Have you ever been in actual combat? Pete's expression grew more serious. A few times. It's not something I enjoy talking about. Were you afraid? Of course. Fear keeps you alive in dangerous situations. The trick is not letting it control you. The aliens looked at each other nervously. The idea that Pete Williams, who seemed so calm and friendly, was also a trained warrior was deeply unsettling. Meanwhile, in the ship's engineering section, Amy Collins was having a discussion with Chief Engineer Talmor about the Starweaver's power systems. Your fusion reactors are incredibly efficient, Amy said, studying the schematics. We're still using much more primitive designs. These are standard throughout the galaxy, Talmor replied. Nothing special. Maybe not to you, but to us, this is incredible technology. Though I notice you have some redundancy issues in your power distribution. Redundancy issues. Amy pointed to several areas on the schematic. If this primary conduit fails, you lose power to half the ship. On Earth, we learn to build multiple backup systems for everything critical. Why would you need so many backups? Because things break down, especially in harsh conditions. If your life support system fails during a hurricane, you don't get a second chance. Talmor studied the areas Amy had indicated. She was right. The ship's power systems had single points of failure that could be catastrophic. Could you suggest improvements? He asked. I'd be happy to help, Amy said with a smile. That evening, Captain Zethara called a meeting with her senior staff. The humans had been invited to dinner, but first, she needed to discuss the situation with her crew. I've been in contact with the Galactic Council, she began. They want us to escort the human ship to Terminus Station for formal evaluation. Is that wise? Yemtai asked. Bringing them to a major hub station? The Council believes it's necessary. They need to determine how to classify humanity and what their role in galactic society might be. Dr. Velnara spoke up. Captain, I've been studying them for 2 days now. They're not the monsters we initially thought. They're genuinely peaceful and curious people. But they're also incredibly dangerous, Crindall pointed out. Their physical capabilities alone make them formidable. Dangerous and formidable aren't the same as hostile, Norabeth said. They haven't shown any aggressive behavior. That's what worries some council members, Zathara replied. A species capable of violence but smart enough to hide it. The dinner that followed was awkward. The humans sensed the tension among the crew, though they didn't understand the cause. Is everything all right? Jake asked during the meal. You all seem worried about something. Zathara decided to be honest. Jake, the Galactic Council has asked us to escort you to Terminus Station. It's a major hub where they can properly evaluate your species' place in galactic society. That sounds interesting, Jake said. We'd be honored to meet more species and learn about the galactic community. You're not concerned about being evaluated? Yemtai asked. Pete Williams laughed. We've been evaluated by hostile forces before. At least you're being polite about it. Besides, Amy added, we want to be good neighbors. If there are procedures we need to follow, we're happy to cooperate. Their easy acceptance of what could be a dangerous situation only reinforced the crew's mixed feelings about the humans. Were they incredibly brave, completely naive, or something else entirely? After dinner, Jake Morrison found Captain Zathara on the bridge. Captain, I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for us. I know this situation must be difficult for you. Jake, can I ask you something? Aren't you worried about what might happen at Terminus Station? Some species might see you as a threat. Jake considered this for a moment. We've always known that first contact would be complicated, but hiding won't solve anything. If we want to be part of the galactic community, we need to prove we can be trusted. And if some species decide you're too dangerous to trust, then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I believe most intelligent beings want the same things we do: peace, security, and the chance to build something better for their children. Zathara looked at this human who spoke so calmly about facing potential hostility from an entire galaxy. How can you be so optimistic? Jake smiled. Because pessimism never solved any problems. On Earth, we learned that you can either spend your time worrying about what might go wrong, or you can spend it preparing for whatever comes next. We prefer to prepare. As the Star Weaver changed course for Terminus Station, Captain Zathara wondered if the galaxy was ready for humanity. More importantly, she wondered if humanity was ready for the galaxy. Terminus Station was the largest structure Jake Morrison had ever seen. The massive space station stretched for kilometers in every direction, with ships from dozens of different species docked at its many ports. As the New Horizon approached, under escort from the Star Weaver, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Look at the size of that thing, Amy Collins said from the pilot's seat. It must house millions of beings. Pete Williams checked his instruments. Multiple defense platforms, energy shields, and weapon systems. They're definitely taking security seriously. Can you blame them? Jake replied. From their perspective, we're complete unknowns from an impossible world. The docking process took 2 hours. Station security had cleared an entire section just for the human ship. As Jake, Amy, and Pete prepared to disembark, they could see crowds of aliens gathering behind transparent barriers to get a look at them. Captain Zathara met them at the airlock. The council is ready to see you, but first, there's been an incident. What kind of incident? Jake asked. One of the station's diplomatic staff accidentally injured himself while preparing for your arrival. His name is Tony, and he's from the crystalline species. The medical team wants to treat him, but they're concerned about contamination protocols. They followed Zathara through the station corridors. Everywhere they went, aliens stopped what they were doing to stare. Some looked curious, others appeared frightened, and a few seemed hostile. In the medical bay, they found a tall, crystalline being lying on a treatment table. His arm was cracked and leaking a blue fluid. The medical team stood around him looking worried. The problem, Dr. Velnara explained, is that Tony accidentally cut himself on a piece of equipment while setting up the meeting room. But the cut happened when he was holding a data pad with information about human biology. There might be contamination. Tony looked up weakly as they approached. "I am sorry for causing trouble," he said in a voice like wind chimes. "I was excited to meet the humans and was not being careful." Jake stepped forward without hesitation. "Don't worry about it. Accidents happen. Can I take a look?" The medical team backed away nervously as Jake examined the crack in Tony's crystalline arm. "This doesn't look too serious. On Earth, we'd call this similar to a cut that needs stitches." "You have experience with this kind of injury?" one of the doctors asked. "Not exactly like this, but I've treated plenty of cuts and broken bones." "The principles are probably similar." Amy Collins had been scanning the area with a small device. "Jake, I'm not detecting any dangerous contamination. The data pad just has basic biological information on it." Pete Williams looked at the crowd of nervous medical staff. "You know, where we come from, when someone gets hurt, the first thing you do is help them. Everything else can wait." Jake knelt down next to Tony. "Is it okay if I touch your arm? I want to see if we can stabilize the crack." Tony nodded weakly. Jake carefully examined the damaged area, then looked around the medical bay. "Do you have anything like surgical glue or sealant?" One of the doctors handed him a device. "This creates molecular bonds in crystalline structures." "Perfect." Jake worked carefully, sealing the crack while talking to Tony in a calm, reassuring voice. "So you were setting up for our meeting? That was very kind of you. I have studied your species since the reports came in," Tony said, his voice growing stronger as the sealant took effect. "You are fascinating, a species that survived what should have been impossible." "We just did what we had to do," Jake replied, finishing his work. "There, that should hold until your doctors can do a proper repair." Dr. Velnara ran a scanner over Tony's arm. "The seal is perfect. The fracture is completely stabilized." Tony sat up slowly, testing his repaired arm. "It feels much better. Thank you." The crowd in the medical bay had grown larger. Word was spreading throughout the station that the humans had just casually treated an injured alien using unfamiliar medical techniques. "You fixed him like it was nothing," one of the doctors said in amazement. "Basic first aid," Pete said with a shrug. "When you live on a dangerous world, everyone learns how to treat injuries." An hour later, Jake Morrison stood before the full Galactic Council. Representatives from over 50 species filled the massive chamber, their attention focused entirely on him. Amy and Pete flanked him on either side, while Captain Zethara and her crew watched from the gallery. Council leader Vexhan, an ancient being with silver skin and multiple eyes, spoke first. "Jake Morrison of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council as a representative of humanity. We must determine your species' place in our community." "Thank you for this opportunity," Jake replied. "We're honored to be here. Some of our members believe humanity poses a threat to galactic peace. Your species evolved on a world that should have killed any intelligent life. You possess physical capabilities that exceed our strongest warriors. You have weapons that could devastate planets." Jake nodded. "All of that is true. But we're not here to threaten anyone. We're here to learn and to help, if we can." A representative from the Valdorian hegemony stood up. "How can we trust beings from a death world? Your very existence proves you are killers." "Our existence proves we're survivors," Amy corrected. "There's a difference." Pete Williams stepped forward. "If you want to judge us by our capacity for violence, that's your choice. But you should also judge us by how we choose to use that capacity." Council leader Vexhan leaned forward. "Explain." "We could have come to the galaxy as conquerors," Jake said. "With our technology and physical abilities, we probably could have taken what we wanted by force. Instead, we came as explorers, looking for friends and knowledge." "But what do you want from us?" another representative asked. Jake thought for a moment before answering. "We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Earth taught us that survival depends on cooperation. We want to cooperate with the galaxy." "And what can you offer in return?" Amy Collins spoke up. "We can go places you can't. We can survive in environments that would kill other species. We can solve problems that might seem impossible to beings from safer worlds." "For example?" Vexahan asked. Pete Williams looked around the chamber. We heard rumors about something called the Void Plague affecting Outer Rim worlds. Most species avoid those areas because they're too dangerous. For us, dangerous is just another word for interesting. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. The Void Plague was indeed spreading through the galaxy's most hostile regions, and no one had found a way to stop it. Jake continued, "We're not saying we have all the answers, but we have experience dealing with things that seem impossible. If there are problems in the galaxy that need solving, especially in dangerous places, we'd like to help." Council Leader Vexhan was quiet for a long moment. "You would voluntarily enter hostile territory to help species you've never met?" "If they needed help, yes," Jake said simply. "That's what neighbors do." The voting took 3 hours. Representatives argued, debated, and consulted with their homeworlds. When it was over, Council Leader Vexhan announced the decision. By a narrow majority, the Galactic Council accepts humanity as a provisional member of our community. You will be granted access to galactic trade routes, communication networks, and diplomatic channels. Jake felt a surge of relief and excitement. "Thank you. We won't let you down." "However," Vexhan continued, "your species will be classified as specialized emergency responders. When the galaxy faces crises in hostile environments, humanity will be called upon to help." Amy Collins grinned. "So you want us to be the galaxy's emergency services for dangerous situations?" "In simple terms, yes." Pete Williams laughed. "Sounds like exactly the kind of job humans would be good at." As they left the council chambers, Jake Morrison felt a sense of completion. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors or outcasts, but as the beings willing to go where others couldn't. Captain Zathara caught up with them in the corridor. "So what happens now?" "Now we go home and tell Earth the good news," Jake said, "and then we get ready to help our new neighbors with whatever they need." "Even if it's dangerous?" Jake smiled. "Especially if it's dangerous. After all, that's what we do best." As the New Horizon prepared to depart Terminus Station, it was no longer alone. 3 ships from different species had volunteered to accompany the humans back to Earth, eager to learn more about the beings who had turned survival into an art form. For the first time in galactic history, a Class 15 Deathworld would receive official diplomatic visitors. And somehow, everyone involved was looking forward to the experience. The stars looked different from this sector of space. Chief Researcher Zixtal pressed a long, thin finger against the viewport of the luminous inquiry and traced the outline of the human warship in the distance. The vessel, known as the USS Intrepid, moved with purpose through the darkness, its hull reflecting the distant sun's light. "Are we certain about this mission?" asked Junior Researcher Nevlox, his voice carrying the musical tones typical of Zilarian speech. Zixtal turned, the scales on his face shifting to a confident blue pattern. "The Galactic Concord requires more information on these humans. They are an anomaly. Aggressive, divided, yet somehow advanced enough to join us among the stars." The 6 Zilarian researchers had spent 3 orbital cycles observing the human ship from a distance. Their vessel, cloaked with the most advanced technology, in the Concord had remained undetected, or so they believed. On board the USS Intrepid, Engineer Alan Reeves frowned at his console. "That's the 3rd energy spike this week," he muttered to himself. The readings were faint, just small disturbances in the background radiation near the ship. He tapped his communication badge. "Reeves to bridge, I'm still getting those strange readings." "Acknowledged," came the tired voice of Night Officer Ben Lopez. "Sensors show nothing out there, probably just cosmic background." Alan shrugged and returned to his maintenance work on the antimatter containment system. The Intrepid was on routine patrol in the Tau Ceti system, maintaining Earth's military presence in what some politicians called disputed space. Most of the 200-person crew was asleep, with only 20 crew members actively working the night shift. Back on the Zilarian vessel, final preparations were underway. The researchers dressed in their environmental suits, necessary not just for breathing but also equipped with stealth technology that bent light around them. Not true invisibility, but enough to avoid casual detection. Remember, Zixtal instructed, we collect data and leave. No interaction with the humans. Our intelligence indicates this section of their ship will be empty during their sleep cycle. The team checked their equipment one last time. Sample collectors, data scanners, and universal translators, just in case. Each carried a small defensive tool, but they were scientists, not warriors. If discovered, their plan was simple. Retreat, immediately. Initiating matter transfer, announced the ship's operator. The teleportation beam was another technology humans reportedly lacked. The 6 Zilarians dissolved into streams of light. They materialized in the engineering section of the Intrepid. The human ship was smaller than their own but densely packed with equipment. Pipes ran along ceilings, control panels lined walls, and the constant hum of machinery filled the air. Spread out, whispered Zixtal. Keep communication channels open. The aliens moved carefully through the engineering bay, their eyes wide as they took in the human technology. It was different from their own, less elegant, more practical, with redundant systems everywhere. Each researcher began collecting data, scanning equipment, taking samples of materials. Fascinating, murmured researcher Veldin, examining a power coupling. Their energy transfer systems are inefficient but extremely durable. Their computer interfaces are designed for speed over accuracy, noted another researcher. Everything about this ship speaks of beings prepared for things to go wrong. Zixtal was about to respond when he froze. From behind a large reactor housing stepped a human male. The alien researchers instantly stilled, relying on their stealth suits to remain undetected. Alan Reeves had just finished checking the containment field regulators when he noticed something strange. 6 shimmering outlines stood in his engineering bay. They weren't completely invisible, more like the way heat makes air waver above hot pavement. He could see right through them, but they were definitely there. The Zilarians remained motionless, confident in their technology. Their intelligence had indicated human vision was limited compared to their own. What they didn't know was that humans had evolved as predators, with eyes particularly sensitive to movement. I can see you, Alan said simply, reaching slowly toward the alarm panel on the wall. Zixtal felt a shock run through his body. How could the human detect them? Their suits should have rendered them virtually invisible. He quickly assessed the situation. Their cover was blown and the human was about to alert others. Wait. Zixtal stepped forward, deactivating his camouflage. We mean no harm. The other researchers followed suit, their forms becoming fully visible. Tall, slender beings with scale-like skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Their large eyes blinked nervously at the human. Alan's hand stopped inches from the alarm. His eyes widened at the sight of the aliens, but years of Starfleet training kept him calm. You're aboard a United Earth military vessel without authorization. Identify yourselves. We are scientific researchers from the Zilarian Collective, Zixtal explained, his translator converting his musical language to human English. We are here to study your species. Alan's eyes narrowed. By sneaking aboard our ship? That's not how research works where I come from. Our methods are non-invasive. We meant only to observe, Zixtal tried to explain. Alan's hand moved again toward the alarm panel. You should have asked permission. Junior researcher Nevlox panicked. His scales flashed a bright warning red as he raised his sample collector. The device, while harmless, looked enough like a weapon to trigger Alan's combat training. Alan slammed his hand on the alarm button. Immediately, red lights began flashing throughout the ship, and a loud siren wailed. Intruder alert! Security! To engineering deck. The Zilarians looked at each other in dismay. This was not how their careful research mission was supposed to go. Their intelligence had clearly been flawed. We should leave, urged Veldin. Activate emergency transport. Zixtal tried his communication device, but nothing happened. The human ship is generating interference. We cannot transport. Throughout the Intrepid, the crew awoke to the blaring alarms. Commander Kate Willis jumped from her bed, grabbing her uniform. Security Chief Greg Porter was already organizing his team, weapons drawn as they rushed toward engineering. What's the situation? Commander Willis demanded, running onto the bridge. Night Officer Lopez looked up from his console. Engineer Reeves reports 6 alien intruders in engineering. Unknown species appeared out of nowhere. Willis's face hardened. Lock down all sections. No one gets off this ship. Back in engineering, Alan kept his distance from the aliens but blocked the only exit. Stay where you are, he ordered. Security is on the way. Zixtal's scales had shifted to a pale blue, the Zalarian equivalent of going white with fear. What had started as a simple scientific expedition had just become a potential interstellar incident. As the sounds of running boots echoed down the corridor outside, the chief researcher realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had boarded a human warship for research, and they were about to regret it immediately. Red emergency lights flooded the corridors of the USS Intrepid as Commander Kate Willis rushed toward engineering. She had pulled on her uniform in seconds, muscle memory from countless drills. Around her, the ship transformed from quiet night, cycled to full combat readiness with practice speed. Status report, she demanded into her communicator as she ran. 6 alien intruders in engineering, replied Security Chief Greg Porter, who was already leading a team down another corridor. Engineer Reeves has them contained for now. No weapons fired yet. In engineering, Alan kept his eyes fixed on the 6 strange visitors. The aliens stood close together, their scale-like skin shifting through colors that seemed to reflect their mood. Right now, they were mostly showing pale blues and anxious yellows. Your ship's response time is unexpected, said Zixtal, trying to sound calm. Our research indicated humans would be slow to mobilize during sleep cycles. Alan raised an eyebrow. You picked the wrong ship to test that theory. The door to engineering slid open with a hiss. 4 security officers entered, weapons drawn. They moved with practiced precision, spreading out to cover all angles. The aliens' eyes widened at this display of coordination. On the ground, hands. Where we can see them, ordered the lead officer. The Zalarians looked at each other in confusion. Their physiology was different from humans, their joints bent in different ways. We cannot assume that position, Zixtal explained, but we surrender peacefully. The aliens raised their 4-fingered hands slowly. Commander Willis arrived moments later, taking in the scene with quick, analytical eyes. She was shorter than most of her crew but carried an air of authority that made her seem taller. I am Commander Kate Willis of the United Earth Defense Force, she announced. You have illegally boarded a military vessel. Identify yourselves, and your purpose. Zixtal stepped forward slightly. I am Chief Researcher Zixtal of the Zalarian Collective. We are scientists, not warriors. We came to study your species. Willis's eyes narrowed. By sneaking aboard my ship? The Galactic Concord required more data on humanity, Zixtal explained. Your species is unusual. You advance to space travel despite ongoing internal conflicts. You build warships despite being in peacetime. We needed to understand. And direct contact was too straightforward? Willis asked. Junior researcher Nevlox, his scales now a nervous purple, spoke up. Observation without interaction gives more natural results. Security Chief Porter snorted. How's that working out for you? As they spoke, more crew members arrived. The ship's doctor, Susan Clark, observed the aliens with professional curiosity. The Zalarians noticed the humans carried themselves differently from most species they had studied. Even the medical officer moved with a hint of combat readiness. Search them for weapons, Willis ordered. We carry only research tools, Zixtal said, but submitted to the search. The security team carefully collected the aliens' equipment. One officer whistled at the technology. Some of this stuff is way beyond our tech level, Commander, he noted. Willis turned to her security chief. Take them to the secure conference room. Post guards. I want their tech analyzed and a full ship. Sweep for any other surprises. As the aliens were led away, Zixtal noticed that despite the alarm, the human crew operated with remarkable efficiency. There was no panic, no wasted motion. Everyone seemed to know exactly what to do in this unexpected situation. In the conference room, the 6 researchers sat nervously under guard. Through the window they could see stars streaking by. The ship had changed course. "Why are we moving?" asked Veldin. "Standard procedure," replied one of the guards. "We never stay in one place after a security breach." The door opened, and Commander Willis entered, followed by Dr. Clark and Security Chief Porter. Willis placed a small device on the table. "My communications officer managed to fix your translator to work with our systems," she said. "So let's talk clearly. You're from the Galactic Concord, the same organization that denied our request for full membership last year?" The aliens exchanged looks. "Your species was granted observer status," Zixtal said carefully. "Full membership requires more time to evaluate compatibility." Willis leaned forward. "Yet you felt comfortable enough to invade our ship." "Not invade," Nevlox protested. "Research only." Dr. Clark stepped closer, examining the aliens with interest. "Your physiological response indicates stress. The color changes in your scales. That's emotional signaling, isn't it?" Zixtal seemed surprised by this observation. "Yes. How did you know?" "Similar patterns exist in Earth species," she replied. "Your current colors suggest fear and anxiety." On the bridge, Night Officer Lopez was reviewing sensor logs. "Commander, I found something. There's a cloaked vessel about 500,000 kilometers off our port side. It's been shadowing us for days." Willis's face hardened. "Their mothership. Target weapons, but hold fire." Zixtal's scales flashed alarm red when told about this development. "Please. Our vessel is a scientific ship. It has minimal defenses." "Unlike the ship you chose to board," Willis noted coldly. In engineering, Alan Reeves was examining the aliens' equipment with fascination. "This is amazing," he told his assistant. "Their power sources are incredibly efficient." His assistant nodded. "But have you noticed? All their tools are designed for perfect conditions. No redundancies, no backup systems." Alan realized she was right. They've never had to make things work when everything is going wrong. Back in the conference room, Willis was questioning the aliens about the Galactic Concord. Why was humanity only given observer status? "Your species is considered unpredictable," Veldin explained. "You continue to maintain military forces despite no external threats. Your nations still have borders. You prepare for conflicts that don't exist." Willis laughed, a sound that made the alien's scales shift uneasily. "And now you're seeing why." The ship suddenly shook slightly. Porter touched his communicator. "Bridge report. The alien vessel just tried to scan us with an active beam," came the reply. "We deployed countermeasures." Zixtal's scales paled. "They're worried about us. Please allow us to communicate with our ship." Willis considered this request. "Under supervision." When allowed to send a message, Zixtal spoke quickly in the musical Zalarian language. The humans' translators picked up the words. "We are unharmed. The humans are not as we expected. Take no action that could be seen as hostile." After the message was sent, Dr. Clark approached the aliens with a medical scanner. "With your permission, I'd like to check your health. Our atmosphere might affect you differently over time." The Zalarians were surprised by this concern. Even as prisoners, the humans were offering medical care. "Your species is full of contradictions," Zixtal said to Willis. "You train for war, yet offer help to those who wronged you." Willis shrugged. "That's humanity for you. We hope for the best, but prepare for the worst," Porter finished. As night cycle gave way to day on the Intrepid, the Zalarians began to understand they had made more than a tactical error. They had fundamentally misunderstood the species they had come to study. These humans did not build warships because they wanted war. They built them because their history had never allowed them the luxury of assuming peace. And now, aboard the very vessel they had thought to study secretly, the Zalarians were about to get the education of their lives. The Zalarian researchers huddled together in the conference room, their scales shifting between worried blues and anxious yellows. 6 hours had passed since their capture. Commander Willis had left them under guard while she consulted with Earth Command about the diplomatic situation. "Our research was deeply flawed," Zixtal admitted quietly to his team. The humans are nothing like our report suggested. Veldin nodded, her scales rippling with embarrassment. We believed them primitive, because their technology is less advanced than ours. But their ship design shows a different kind of advancement. The door slid open and Security Chief Greg Porter entered with 2 guards. The commander has made a decision, he announced. You'll be confined to quarters while we travel to the nearest diplomatic station. But first, we need to be sure you pose no further threat. The aliens exchanged nervous glances. Porter continued. We're implementing emergency protocols. For safety reasons, you'll be kept separate from each other. Separate? Nevlox's scales flashed alarm red. But we are a research unit. We function together. Porter remained unmoved. Not my problem. These are standard containment procedures for unknown entities. As the guards led them away, Zixtal realized the humans were following their training. In a crisis, they fell back on practiced routines. It was both impressive and frightening. Each researcher was placed in separate guest quarters with guards posted outside. The rooms were comfortable, but the doors were locked. Each contained a bed, a small desk, and a computer terminal with limited access. In her quarters, Commander Willis reviewed the situation report. The alien vessel remained at a distance, matching their course but taking no aggressive action. Analysis of the aliens' equipment confirmed they were indeed researchers, not spies or saboteurs. Still, protocols had to be followed. Willis touched her communicator. Willis to Dr. Clark. What's your assessment of our visitors? Fascinating. Species, came the doctor's voice. Their biology is remarkable. Their skin doesn't just change color, it actually adapts to environmental conditions. But they're showing signs of stress from separation. They appear to be a naturally social species. Willis considered this information. Keep monitoring them. Let me know if their health is at risk. In his quarters, Zixtal examined the computer terminal. It was restricted to basic information, ship schematics, crew protocols, and some historical data. He realized this was intentional. The humans were allowing him to learn about them, but nothing sensitive. What he found surprised him. The humans had detailed protocols for first contact situations, alien biology, and even cultural exchange. They had prepared for meeting new species long before they actually did so. Their planning was remarkable. Meanwhile, engineer Alan Reeves was still studying the Zalarian technology. Their teleportation device is incredible, he told his team. But it has a weakness. It can't function when certain electromagnetic frequencies are present. Like the ones our shields generate during combat? Asked his assistant. Alan nodded. Exactly. They probably didn't expect us to have those running during peacetime. On the bridge, Officer Ben Lopez detected unusual movement. Commander, the alien researchers left some kind of beacon in engineering. It's transmitting their location. Commander Willis frowned. Is it a threat? Doesn't appear to be. Just a tracking signal. Willis made a decision. Leave it active. Let their ship follow us. We want them where we can see them. In his isolation, junior researcher Nevlox was growing increasingly anxious. His scales had turned a deep, worried purple. Unlike the others, he wasn't handling the separation well. The humans had taken his communication device, but he had a backup, a small emergency beacon hidden in his environmental suit. Making a desperate decision, he activated it. The device was designed to trigger an emergency extraction, the Zalarian version of a rescue operation. Alarms blared throughout the Intrepid. Unknown energy signature detected in guest quarters section, reported the computer voice. Security. Teams rushed to Nevlox's room. The young researcher cowered as they burst in, weapons drawn. What did you do? Demanded Porter, grabbing the alien by his slender arm. Just called for help, Nevlox stammered. Standard procedure when researchers are in danger. Porter dragged him to the bridge where Commander Willis waited, her face grim. Your friend just sent an emergency signal to your ship, she told Zixtal, who had also been brought there. They're powering up engines and weapons. Zixtal's scales turned pale with horror. No, this is a mistake. Emergency extraction is for life-threatening situations only. Well, they seem to think you're in danger, Willis said coldly. My ship is now at risk because your researcher panicked. On the main screen, they could see the Zalarian vessel moving closer, its elegant form now glowing with energy. The humans responded with practiced efficiency. Shields raised, weapons charged, crew moving to battle stations. Stop this, Zixtal pleaded. Let me speak to them. Willis hesitated, then nodded. Make it quick. Using the ship's communication system, Zixtal sent an urgent message in Zalarian. The musical language flowed rapidly as he explained the situation. Tell them to stand down, Willis ordered when he finished. I have, Zixtal assured her, but our protocols are strict. They need confirmation that we are truly safe. Willis thought for a moment. Fine. All of you on screen together. Show them you're unharmed. The 6 researchers were brought together before the communication display. They showed their scales in calm colors and spoke reassuringly to their ship. Slowly, the Zalarian vessel powered down its weapons. The tension on the bridge eased slightly. That was too close, Willis said, turning to Zixtal. Your people nearly started an interstellar incident because you couldn't follow simple containment protocols. Zixtal lowered his head. We are not accustomed to being treated as threats. In the Galactic Concord, scientific vessels have special status. On Earth, Porter cut in. We learned the hard way that threats can come disguised as anything, even science. The aliens were returned to the conference room, now allowed to stay together under heavy guard. As they huddled, comparing notes on what they had learned, Zixtal came to a troubling realization. The humans aren't just physically adapted to deal with threats, he told his team quietly. Their entire society is structured around survival, in hostile conditions. They assume danger until proven otherwise. Veldin's scales shifted thoughtfully. Yet they showed restraint. They could have destroyed our ship. Because they're not just warriors, Zixtal replied. That's what makes them so remarkable. They balance constant vigilance with scientific curiosity and even compassion. Outside the room, Commander Willis was having a similar conversation with Dr. Clark. Their biology is fascinating, the doctor said. They evolved as prey species, not predators like us. They're naturally peaceful but highly intelligent. Willis nodded. Which explains their shock at our security measures. Their society never had to develop them. As the Intrepid continued toward the diplomatic station, both species were learning uncomfortable truths about each other. The humans discovered a galactic society that had evolved beyond constant military readiness. The Zalarians discovered a species whose history had never given them that luxury, and both wondered which approach would better serve them in the unknown future that lay ahead. The USS Intrepid arrived at Diplomatic Station Gamma 6 early the next morning. The station orbited a neutral planet on the edge of human space, serving as a meeting point between Earth forces and other species. Commander Willis had received new orders. Transfer the Zalarian researchers to the station and await representatives from the Galactic Concord. Will they punish us severely? Nevlox asked nervously as the 6 aliens prepared to disembark. His scales had taken on a worried gray color. Zixtal shook his head. We violated protocols, but our mission was approved by the Science Directorate. The consequences will fall on me as expedition leader. Security Chief Porter escorted them to the shuttle bay. The aliens noticed he seemed less tense now that they were leaving his ship. Some advice, he told them as they walked. Next time, you want to study someone, just ask. Most humans will talk your ear off if you let them. The Zalarians looked confused by the expression, their translator struggling with the idiom. Porter sighed. It means we talk a lot when asked. Before boarding the shuttle, Zixtal requested to speak with Commander Willis. She arrived moments later, her uniform crisp and her expression neutral. Commander, I wish to apologize formally for our intrusion, the alien researcher said. Our methods were disrespectful. Willis studied him for a moment. Apology accepted, but I'm curious. What did you learn about us during your stay? Zixtal's scales shifted to a thoughtful green. That we have misjudged humanity. The Concord, sees your military vessels as signs of aggression. Now I see they are simply part of how your species navigates uncertainty. Willis nodded. When you've spent most of your history fighting each other, you don't drop your guard easily, even in peace. On the diplomatic station, the situation had escalated beyond what either the humans or the Zellarians expected. Representatives from 5 major Concord species had arrived, treating the incident as a serious diplomatic matter. Ambassador Jack Brown of Earth looked uncomfortable as he met with Willis in a private room. "This is bigger than we thought, Commander. The Concord Council is treating this as a test case for human-galactic relations." "We didn't do anything wrong," Willis protested. "They boarded our ship illegally." "True," Brown agreed, "but how we handle it matters. The Zellarians are respected members of the Concord. Their science directorate is influential." In another room, Zixtal faced the Concord representatives. The Volaxian delegate, a floating crystalline being, pulsed with disapproval. "Your actions have created a diplomatic incident with a volatile species. The Council requires a full explanation." Zixtal straightened to his full height. "With respect, honored delegate, I believe our assessment of humanity has been flawed from the beginning." "Explain," demanded the Eldurian representative, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "We classified humans as primitive because their technology lags behind ours. We labeled them aggressive because they maintain military readiness. Both judgments were superficial," Zixtal said. He activated a display showing data gathered during their brief captivity. "Their ship systems contain redundancies our designers would consider wasteful. Their crew trains constantly for scenarios that rarely occur. Their medical facilities can treat any species, not just their own." The representatives studied the information with varying expressions of surprise and skepticism. "These are not signs of primitive thinking," Zixtal continued. "They are adaptations to a history we cannot imagine. Humans prepare for the worst, while still hoping for the best. It is not aggression, it is survival." Later that day, the diplomatic talks began in earnest. The Zellarians were surprised when Commander Willis and her senior staff entered the conference room. They had expected only Ambassador Brown. "We requested their presence," Brown explained to the Concord representatives. "They experienced this incident firsthand. Their insights are valuable." The Volaxian delegate pulsed with reluctant agreement. "Very well. Let us begin with the facts. Zellarian researchers illegally boarded a human military vessel. When discovered, the humans detained them according to their protocols, but provided medical care and safe transport to this station." Engineer Alan Reeves spoke up unexpectedly. "With respect, there's something important missing from that summary." The delegates turned to him in surprise. Reeves continued, "The Zellarians came to study us, but while they were aboard, we were studying them too. Their technology, their biology, their reactions. We learned as much about them as they did about us." Dr. Susan Clark nodded. "I've already begun compiling a xenobiology report based on my observations. Their physiological responses to stress are fascinating." The Concord representatives seemed taken aback. They had expected the humans to demand punishment for the Zellarians. Instead, they were treating the incident as a scientific exchange. "You're not angry about the intrusion?" asked the Eldurian, confused. Commander Willis smiled slightly. "Oh, we were angry. Still are, to be honest. But we're also curious. That's the other thing you should understand about humans. We never waste a good learning opportunity." As the talks continued, a new understanding began to emerge. The Concord representatives saw firsthand how humans balanced military caution with scientific curiosity. The humans demonstrated that their readiness for conflict didn't mean they sought it out. During a break, Zixtal approached Willis and, "Dr. Clark, your approach to this situation has been educational for all of us," he admitted. "The Council expected you to demand our punishment." Clark shrugged. "What would that accomplish? We'd rather gain knowledge than satisfaction." The final agreement, reached after hours of negotiation, surprised everyone with its simplicity. The Zellarians formally apologized for the unauthorized boarding. The humans agreed to share their non-classified findings about Zalarian biology and technology. Most importantly, both sides committed to a proper cultural exchange program. As they prepared to return to their respective ships, Zixtal had one last conversation with Commander Willis. "I came to study humans as interesting specimens," he said quietly. "I leave respecting you as equals. Perhaps we are not so different after all." Willis looked thoughtful. "Different journeys, similar destinations. You evolved past the need for constant vigilance. We're still working on that. And yet, your vigilance didn't lead to vengeance when you had cause," Zixtal observed. "That reveals much about humanity's true nature." As the Intrepid broke orbit from the station, the crew gathered on the observation deck to watch the Zalarian vessel do the same. Its elegant form glowed softly as it turned toward home. "Do you think they really understand us now?" asked Officer Ben Lopez. Commander Willis watched the alien ship disappear into lightspeed. "They're beginning to, and that's a start." 3 months after the boarding incident, the USS Intrepid received new orders. They were to transport a special diplomatic team to the Zalarian homeworld, the first official human delegation invited to visit the planet. Commander Kate Willis read the message twice to be sure. "Looks like our unwelcome visitors put in a good word for us," she told her senior staff during their morning briefing. Security Chief Greg Porter looked skeptical. "Or they want a closer look at us in a controlled environment." Dr. Susan Clark smiled. "Either way, it's progress. The Galactic Concord has been keeping humanity at arm's length for years." The journey to Zalaria took 2 weeks at maximum speed. During that time, the diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Jack Brown, worked closely with the Intrepid's crew to prepare. They studied Zalarian customs, practiced their formal greetings, and tried to learn the basics of the musical language. Engineer Alan Reeves had been specially requested to join the delegation. His encounter with the researchers had made him something of a celebrity among the Zalarians. "I still don't understand why they want me there," he told Willis as they approached the Zalarian system. "I'm just an engineer." "You were the first human they met," Willis replied. "And you didn't shoot them, which apparently exceeded their expectations." The Zalarian homeworld was beautiful, a blue-green planet with 2 small moons and rings like Saturn, but thinner and more colorful. As the Intrepid entered orbit, they were met by an escort of elegant ships that guided them to a docking station. The welcoming committee included all 6 of the researchers who had boarded the Intrepid. Chief Researcher Zixtal's scales were now a confident green as he greeted the human delegation. "Welcome to Zalaria," he said formally. "Your presence honors us." Ambassador Brown performed the traditional Zalarian greeting, a slow waving motion with both hands that the humans had practiced for days. "The honor is ours. Earth thanks you for this invitation." The humans were given a tour of the capital, city. They marveled at the Zalarian architecture, buildings that seemed to flow rather than stand, with colors that shifted throughout the day to match the changing light. "Your structures are beautiful," Alan told Zixtal as they walked. "No sharp edges anywhere." "We evolved in curved environments," the alien explained. "Right angles feel unnatural to us." The highlight of the visit was a special session of the Zalarian Science Directorate. The humans were surprised to learn they would not just be observers. They were invited to speak. "They want to hear about human engineering principles," Ambassador Brown told Alan. "Specifically about how we design for unexpected problems." Alan looked nervous. "I'm not a public speaker." "Just tell them how you approach your job," Willis encouraged him. "That's all they want to know." The Science Directorate chamber was filled with hundreds of Zalarians, their scales creating a rippling sea of colors. Alan stood before them, feeling small despite being taller than most of the aliens. "Human engineering isn't as elegant as yours," he began awkwardly. "We don't have your efficiency or your advanced materials. But we have something else: experience with things going wrong." The chamber was silent as he continued, warming to his topic. "Every system on our ships has a backup. Every backup has a backup. We can reroute power through alternative pathways, seal off damaged sections, and operate with partial systems. He explained how human ships were designed to function even when damaged, how crew members were trained to improvise repairs using whatever materials were available. "We call it Murphy's Law," he said. "If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. So we plan for that." The Xelarians seemed fascinated. One elder, her scales a wise blue-purple, asked, "Does this not create inefficiency, extra systems that may never be used?" "Absolutely," Alan agreed. "But we'd rather have them and not need them than need them and not have them." After the session, Zixtal showed the humans something unexpected, a new ship design inspired by their encounter with the Intrepid. It incorporated redundant systems and emergency protocols that were rare in Xelarian vessels. "Your approach has merit," Zixtal admitted. "The Science Directorate was skeptical until they saw our data. Now they're implementing some of your principles in our next generation of exploration vessels." Commander Willis studied the designs with interest. "And we've learned from you as well. Your power distribution system is far more efficient than ours. My engineers are still talking about it." That evening there was a formal reception. The humans were surprised to learn that they were not the only guests. Representatives from other Concord species were present, watching the human-Xelarian interaction with interest. Ambassador Brown found himself speaking with the Valaxian delegate, the same crystalline being who had been at the diplomatic station. "Hero, Concord has been observing how you handled this situation," the Valaxian said, its voice a ringing tone like crystal bells. "Most developing species would have responded with military force to such an intrusion." "We considered it," Brown admitted. "But what would that have achieved?" The Valaxian pulsed with what might have been approval. "This response suggests your species may be more ready for fuller Concord participation than previously assessed." As the reception continued, Dr. Clark engaged with several Xelarian medical researchers. They were particularly interested in human stress responses. "Your species faces danger head-on," one told her. "Most evolved prey species like us avoid conflict whenever possible. It's in our biology." Clark nodded. "Humans evolved as predators, but also as prey. We learned to fight when we had to, hide when we needed to, and work together to survive either way." On the final day of their visit, the humans were given unexpected news. The Galactic Concord had voted to upgrade Earth's status from observer to provisional member. It was the fastest status change in recent Concord history. As they prepared to depart, Commander Willis had one last conversation with Zixtal. "I never thanked you," the alien said quietly. Willis looked surprised. "For what? We detained your team and nearly fired on your ship." "For showing restraint when you had cause for aggression," Zixtal explained. "You taught us something valuable about humanity. You are prepared for war not because you desire it, but because your history has required it. Yet when faced with a threat, you chose measured response over retaliation." Willis smiled slightly. "Don't give us too much credit. We're still working on that balance." As the Intrepid broke orbit from Xelaria, the crew watched the beautiful ringed planet recede in the view screens. What had begun as an unauthorized boarding had somehow transformed into the beginning of a true cultural exchange. "Do you think they'll ever understand us completely?" Alan asked as he stood on the observation deck. Commander Willis watched the stars stretch into streaks as they entered faster than light travel. "Probably not. But they're trying, and so are we. In the end, that's what matters most." The Intrepid continued on its journey, carrying with it not just its crew but a new chapter in humanity's relationship with the wider galaxy. And somewhere, on Xelaria, 6 researchers were writing a report that would change how their entire species viewed the unusual, contradictory, fascinating humans.